Hello, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's online worship service. I'm Reverend Dina McFeeters, and I'm honored to serve as Associate Minister. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all that you are carrying with you today and all that your heart longs to set down. We'd like to pay a special welcome to guests joining us today. If you're visiting for the first time or joining us from afar, why don't you say hello in the chat and tell us where you're joining us from? I welcome you to our worship service today by inviting you to repeat our mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Let's return to our beloved sanctuary for the lighting of the flaming chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism.
Good morning. My name is Paul Kozadowski, and I'm pleased to be your worship associate. This reading is adapted from two poems by Jalal al-Din Rumi. We study artifacts and think we know the maker, so proud of having figured the derivation. Like a scientist, we collect data and put facts together to come to some conclusion. Mystics arrive at knowing differently, lay a head upon a person's chest, and drift into the answer. Thinking gives off smoke to prove the existence of fire. A mystic sits inside the burning. You have had certain visions. Before them, did not mysticism sound ridiculous? There are wonderful shapes in rising smoke that imagination loves to watch. But it's a mistake to leave the fire for that filmy sight. Stay at the flame's core. What you've been given has released you from prison. When Reverend Patrice asked me to reflect on this reading, I confess I was perplexed at first. This didn't seem like a Thanksgiving poem. But as I sat with it, I discovered that the images cut to the core of my experience of grief, and how even grief can be a cause for thankfulness. My youngest sister died of cancer 17 years ago. She lived in Baltimore, so her 3-year struggle and eventual death happened mostly at a distance. We were not close, and even her fatal illness didn't change that. My family, for the most part, responded to her illness with practical help, but suppressed emotions. And I did the same, visiting occasionally and fancying myself as a calming force, conveying strength and wisdom and acceptance. In a way, I was the detached scientist Rumi envisions, observing the rising smoke, that filmy sight. A year ago, death came to another family member when my brother-in-law contracted COVID. He was put on a ventilator in a matter of weeks, and I watched Kathy and her Buffalo, New York family ride the roller coaster of hope and dread over phone calls and FaceTime. In those early weeks, I tried to be stoic and strong, as I did during my sister's illness. But as the prognosis grew more dire, I felt the cool armor of intellect wear away. Surrounded by the pure and unfettered grief of Kathy and the rest of her brother's family, I felt my own grief emerge from deep within. In Rumi's striking terms, I stopped analyzing the smoke and stepped closer to the flame's core. It seems odd to relate this story on a Thanksgiving weekend. I'm not thankful for the suffering, the continuing pain, the absence in the world left by Al's passing. Like those who knew him, I will not forget Al, but I will also not forget the powerful and visceral lesson that emerged from his passing as I watched people I loved embrace and honor their grief, staying close to the flame's core. For that experience and the lessons that will stay with me, I am truly thankful.
In a conversation I had a few weeks ago, the usage of they as a singular pronoun arose. Now I know it's been around a while now, but using they as a singular pronoun still sounds strange to me, though much less so as time has gone on. I remember my initial resistance, not to the idea of being freed from she and he pronouns, but because the grammar I have used my entire life, learned as a child, both conversationally and in English classes right up through college, was being upended. I did finally take the time to Google the usage of they and found several resources addressing the supposedly new use. What I discovered, of course, is that the singular use of they got lost some time ago. It became an artifact of the English language, at least in the United States. An article published in the New York Times by James McWhorter in late September show we are still struggling with this new use. His opinion was entitled, "Gender Pronouns Are Changing, It's Exhilarating." McWhorter argues that we are in a glorious time because we have the opportunity to witness this major change in our language. He reminds us that we have survived many changes in our language, such as the adoption of Ms., which ended delineating women as married or unmarried on the basis of Mrs. and Miss. He continues, language change is a spectator sport. It isn't whether, but how things will change over time. And getting to witness a major change like what's happening today is a kind of privilege, a top ticket. We sometimes laugh at ourselves as Unitarian Universalists when we say we are a people of the word. Perhaps you are struggling with they, the singular they, as well. We sometimes use this as coded language. We are a people of the word for celebrating the intellect. We like facts and data, as Rumi put it in our reading. But I think that Rumi challenges us to not get stuck. Jalaluddin Rumi was a 13th century Persian Sufi saint, jurist, theologian, and poet. We know him through our hymn, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, adapted from his poem. Rumi studied Islamic law and was the head of a school that taught theology, music, poetry, and other subjects and practices related to the growth of the soul. As the translator Coleman Barks writes in the book, Soul of Rumi. Rumi was both a mystic and a practical worker in the world. Rumi did not say abandon rational thought. After all, he lived in the world of keeping a school afloat, of helping students who needed scholarships, who ran into debt problems, who needed jobs, who needed married love advice. He tended to the body, mind, and spirit of his students. Barks continues, I feel the source of the power of Rumi's poetic derives from his continual balance of surrender and discipline, his visionary radiance held in the level calm of ordinary sight. Splendor and practice, meditation and chore. Somewhere in the dynamic of those lies the vitality and validity. Rumi's dense body of work illustrates a man who lived in balance with his intellect and his spirituality. He aptly demonstrates for us that if we allow rationality, an intellectual, practical mind to take root above all else, we will put at risk a rich, interior, spiritual life. What can keep us from being out of balance between the demands of life, the need for our practical mind, and a continuous welcoming of and openness to spiritual mystery? Have you ever driven by or walked past a corner many, many times, maybe one in your neighborhood, perhaps walking your four-legged friend, or perhaps as part of your commute if you're commuting to work, or perhaps it's driving your kids to school, perhaps it's going to the grocery store, but you pass this corner or perhaps this block all the time. Then one day, you notice something you've never noticed before. A new color on the side of a building, a peculiar hum in the air, a sweet smell, a bush in full, glorious bloom. It might be the inattention that comes when we think we know what we know. We stop attending to what is around us. Perhaps from avoiding what we think we don't know because not knowing is scary. Or perhaps it is because we think we know what is already there. Inattention is an obstacle that blocks us from the full wonder of the world, the full wonder of the sun and the moon and the stars, the sweet smell of newly blooming flowers. That color on that building might have been there for 2 weeks before we notice it. An attachment to facts and data is kind of like this. It will make it harder to notice when those facts no longer express what might be a new reality or what might have been a reality already there that we didn't see. If you know that is how you would express to yourself, if you know your spouse likes sugar cookies, when they tell you one day that they prefer apple pie, holding on to that fact of that sugar cookie will not serve you. Author C.S. Lewis wrote this passage. The thrill you feel on first seeing some delightful place dies away when you really go to live there. Does this mean it would be better not to live in this beautiful place? By no means. If you go through with it, the dying away of the first thrill will be compensated for by a quieter and more lasting kind of interest. What is more, it is just the people who are ready to submit to the loss of the thrill and settle down to the sober interest who are then most likely to meet new thrills in some quite different direction. The person who has settled down to live in that delightful place will discover gardening instead. If we wall ourselves in with what we think we know, or with what we think we do not know, if we wall ourselves in with an analytical, rational mind, then we will not know fully what we know. And we will not know fully what we do not know. And we will not know fully what we might not know and then know. Albert Einstein, who denied the presence of personal God, acknowledged this. He said, the most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science. Einstein cultivated opportunities to let mystery work within him. Let the mysterious work within your life. Provide yourself the rich opportunity to the wise, small voice within to speak to you, and then discern its truth for your life. You have been gifted the ability to discover wisdom through your rational mind. You have also been gifted the ability for vital and life-affirming wisdom when you quiet your thinking mind. A quiet mind gains deep-hearted insights that support the continual blossoming and growth of our spirituality. Make time to rest the voice of your rational mind. And if you struggle with this, then think and think and think until your thinking mind is exhausted. Then lay down and let the universe whisper to you. Do not be afraid to welcome mystery. Be a practical mystic. We are sense beings. We feel, taste, smell, see, hear. This is how we experience life. Contentment can come to us in life, but we don't understand completely how contentment arises. There is a mystery to its arising, just as there is a mystery as to how all of our emotions arise. All of our emotions hold a kernel of mystery in their rising and their falling. We might know, however, what can spark contentment for us. It is that time of year when the air is chill. It will be snowing at some point. I love the way snow mutes the harsh, brassy sounds of outside. It seems the world softens and neighbors become intimates. You might experience this too. Like my senses, yours might feel heightened, acutely, pleasantly feeling the cold bite of air on your nose, gentle shivers as a slight wind flows down your spine, feeling the tingle of your fingers wrapped around a snowball, even through gloves, the slight ache from chilled toes, even through boots. then inside for a cup of something warm. Tea, coffee, hot chocolate, soup. You are content in that moment. Or maybe you prefer summer, sitting by a lake, or being in your backyard, running your fingers through water coming out of a hose. Or maybe fall is your season, watching a dog dive with abandon into a pile of fall leaves, or a small child. Such moments make little sense from an intellectual perspective. To adopt a mystic's mind, to reach out for such moments as these, to pause and savor them, to let them fully blossom within you. That is to experience all that life has to offer us. One night, 6 or 7 years ago, I was coming home late from a church event. I spent the evening with my people, Unitarian Universalists. It was a beautiful, crisp fall night, not cold enough to snow yet, and I was walking the last half mile of my commute home. It was late. No one was about. So I put my arms out, straight out, like a child pretending to be an airplane, embracing the moment. I skipped in my warm leather boots. Remember, there was no one else about. I skipped in my warm leather boots down this fairly steep hill and tripped. As I was falling, I distinctly remember, oh no, I am wearing my good wool pants. They cannot get damaged. And I landed on my hands and on my toes as if I was preparing for a push-up. I bounced up, dusted off my palms, grinned at myself, looked at my pants and was very proud because I had saved them. I loved myself in that moment. My willingness to be silly, to celebrate life that way, the mystery of being alive was alive for me in that moment. I walked the rest of the way home. Rational on one hand, responding to mystery on the other. Our faith invites mystery to come play with us, to remind us we are embodied here for a cosmic split second in the vastness of the universe. And it is a reminder to us in those moments that we are leaving artifacts of our lives behind for those who will come. You and I one day will be the artifacts of Unitarian Universalism, a faith that I want to be both celebrating our rational mind and celebrating the mystery of life fully. Let mystery remind you that your bones are made from the bones of others you do not know. Your heart beats like billions of other hearts in the same magical way. You breathe air that your ancestors have breathed, an air that is extruded from the trees in the Amazon. There is so much mystery. And while science can tell us something about the existence of everything on this planet, and we learn more and more, I don't know if we will ever solve the mystery of life itself. So I invite you to skip. I invite you to sink ever deeper into comfort with pronouns that are challenging. I invite you to continue to celebrate your rational mind, your analytical, intellectual mind. As Rumi invites, welcome and weave your knowing and not knowing, your rational and your mystical mind. Cultivate mystery in your life. Balance like a dervish between rationality and mystery. May it be so. Namaste.
Dear ones, I'll leave you with these closing words by Arthur Foote. May peace dwell within our hearts and understanding in our minds. May courage steel our wills and love of truth forever guide us. May it be so.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Whoa, yeah, yeah. 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 We are going.